In this class, we will discuss about design of a three-span continuous beam. So normally they may give two-span or three-span continuous beam. Now you know in your undergraduate level, you know how to design a simply supported beam, cantilever beam. Now here in this course, we have to design a continuous beam. So normally continuous beams are the beams which we can come across in the case of building frames. So more than one span, if a beam has got, then it is a continuous beam. So it is supported by columns or it may be supported by walls at the ends. Now for the design of a three-span continuous beam or more than three-span continuous beam, normally we are going to use coefficients, bending moment coefficients and shear force coefficients, which are available in the tables column 13 of IS 456. So you can directly refer the IS code, these two tables, and you can design the three-span continuous beam. But there is certain condition. So if at all you want to use those bending moment and shear force coefficients, the three conditions should be satisfied for the beam. The first one is there should be more than three or more than three spans. So that is first condition. So that means you cannot apply these coefficients for two-span continuous beam. So only if the spans, number of spans is 3 or more than 3, you can use these bending moment coefficients. Second condition is spans do not differ by 15% of the longest. That means suppose if the longest span is 10 meters, let us say, the other spans should be in the range of 8.5 meters and above. That means it should not vary, more than 15%. So 8.5 meter to 10 meter. If the spans are like that, so then you can use this coefficient. This is an example. So longest span you have to take, and 15% less than the longest span you have to calculate. For example, if it is 10 meter, 15% less of 10 meters is 8.5 meter. So that 8.5 meter, that means if the span is 8.5 meter or 9 meter or 9.5 meter, then you can use these bending moment coefficients. If it is less than 8.5 meter, if any of the spans is less than 8.5 meter, then you cannot use those coefficients. Then third condition is loads are predominantly UDL. So normally these coefficients are derived for uniformly distributed load cases. So you know actually normally in the case of buildings, dead loads are UDL. So definitely dead loads of the beams or slabs, whatever it is, they are all UDL. We are going to treat them as UDL. And live loads are also normally, we take it as UDL only on beams. So only in exceptional cases, the beams may carry point loads. So when there is some heavily loaded object is kept, so then you can take it as a point load. But in normal design, we take the loads as uniformly distributed loads. So these three are the important conditions that should be satisfied for using these bending moment and shear force coefficients. Now I have given two examples here for continuous beam, three-span continuous beam. The outer span is called as the end span, and of course this is also end span. So this also becomes the end span. But here, what happens here? In this case, suppose if it goes beyond this, something like this, then this becomes the end span. So these two are end spans, and the middle two are called the interior spans. Here also the end may be fixed also. So fixed support it can have. So in this case also it will be like this. So the normal you might have observed that in the case of continuous beam, this mid-span moments, they are all sagging moments. The mid-span moments are sagging moment. That means we take bending moment as positive bending moment. Whereas support moments are hogging moments. Support moments means here and here. They are all hogging. Of course, here fixed end also will be having the moment. At simple support, we don't have any moment. So these are all negative moments. So negative moments will occur here and here. Okay. So at the supports you can expect negative moment, whereas at mid spans you can expect sagging moment. So So sagging I will take it as positive, hogging I will take it as negative. That is the usual sign convention. Here also this is sagging, whereas this becomes hogging. At support it is hogging like this. Of course here bending moment will not be there because it is a simple support, whereas in the case of fixed support you have hogging bending moment there also. That means you have to design reinforcements both at midspan as well as at the supports. So at supports, reinforcements you have designed for hogging bending moment. At midspan, you have to design reinforcement for sagging bending moment. So you know that in the case of RCC design, simple RCC design, you might have seen that at the supports, so main reinforcement is provided at the top. Okay, like this. So you may have to provide some two nominal bars at the bottom also. So this is the type of reinforcement which is provided at the support. Whereas at the midspan you are going to provide main reinforcement at the bottom. A nominal you may have to provide at the top. Suppose if it is a doubly reinforced section, then you have to design both tension reinforcement as well as compression reinforcement. So this is at the midspan. At midspan, reinforcement is provided at the bottom because midspan moments are sagging bending moments, and at the supports reinforcements are provided at the top because they are hogging bending moments. So midspan moments are simply supported moments, beam support moments, whereas at the supports it is similar to your cantilever beam bending moments. Now this is the basic principle. Now let us take a design example of 3-span continuous beam, or this procedure is applicable even if the beam has more than 3 spans also. So 3 or more than 3 spans, this is the procedure. Then only you can use these bending moment coefficients, bending moment and shear force coefficients. We can use only if there are 3 or more spans. Now the question runs like this: design a 3-span continuous rectangular beam of span 7 meters each to carry a dead load of 12 kN per meter and live load of 16 kN per meter. The beam is supported by columns. That means it is simply supported. That is the meaning. Use M20 concrete and Fe415 steel. So they will give the concrete grade and steel grade, material grade they will give. Now the solution runs like this. He has given that each span, so this is the span, each span of the beam is 7 meters. L is 7 meters. Dead load is 12 kN per meter, it is UDL. Live load is also 16 kN per meter, that is also UDL. And FCK, grade of concrete 20 M20, so FCK is 20 Newton per mm square. Fy is Fe415, that is 415 Newton per mm square. Yield stress of steel and characteristics of concrete. Now, beginning we have to assume some initial preliminary design we have to do. For that we have to assume the cross-sectional dimensions of the beam. So there is a thumb rule for that. In the case of continuous beam, so this is the case of continuous beam, you can assume d, small d as the effective depth. So please note that small d is the effective depth. Effective depth can be taken as 1 by 12 to 1 by 20th of the span. So now let us see what it becomes. L is 7 meters here or 7000 mm. So D can be taken between 7000 divided by 12 to 7000 divided by 20, which comes out to be 583 to 350 mm. Now any value between these two you can assume. Now let us take 450 mm. So 450 mm is the effective depth of the beam which lies in between these two. Now overall depth, if you add effective cover, I will take effective cover. Normally in the case of beams, minimum cover is 30 mm, but this since it is a continuous beam, I can go for higher value. 50 mm is the effective cover. So 50 mm plus 450 mm gives the overall depth of the beam. So this D is the overall depth. So effective depth is small d, capital D is the overall depth. Now normally the width can be assumed half of the overall depth. So you can take 250 mm. So normally the width is kept 1.5 to 2 times, depth is not, overall depth is kept 1.5 to 2 times that B. So in this case I have taken, so B as D by 2. So this is a thumb rule. So using thumb rule, you can get the cross-sectional dimensions of the beam. Now we are taking the beam of size now, it is a rectangular beam of size like this. This is 250 mm width and 500 mm overall depth, 500 mm. And effective depth, if you provide reinforcement here, this effective depth, so this effective cover will be 50 and effective depth will be 450. So this is the cross-sectional area of the beam proposed. Now after this, second step is to find the design moments and design shear forces. So design moments are denoted as mu in limit state method, and design shears are written as du. Now this is the loading pattern on the continuous beam. So this is subjected to entire UDL. So the UDL consists of both dead load and live load. So now let us see, we will redefine the loads now, because we have not added any self weight or finishing load. Now let us calculate the total dead load by considering self weight and finishing load also. Now self weight becomes, so we have to take the gross cross-sectional area, that is 0.25 meter by 0.5 meter, so millimeters converted to meters, into density of concrete, which is 25 kilonewton per meter cube. So that is density of concrete. So this is in meter square. So if you multiply the cross-sectional area or a gross cross-sectional area by the density of concrete, you are going to get the self weight in kilonewton per meter. So here you are getting 3.125 kilonewton per meter. Sometimes they will give dead load including self weight. So if they give including self weight, you need not take self weight and finishing load separately and add. So directly you can take that value. But here he has not given that. So he has not mentioned anything about including self weight. He has simply given a dead load. That's all. Now, given dead load is 12 kilonewton per meter, let me assume a finishing load of, normally finishing load is taken as 1 kilonewton per meter. Here I have taken 0.875 kilonewton per meter, just because if you add all these three, you are going to get a, that means you are going to get a load of 60. So that is a whole number you are going to get, not a decimal. Anyway, we are going to multiply this by the partial safety factor 1.5 for calculating the mu value later. So that's why we can assume finishing load as 0.875. So if you add all these three, you are going to get the total dead load as 16 kilonewton per meter, and live load he has given, that is also 16 kilonewton per meter. So whatever live load he gives, that we have to take. Now we will calculate the moments now. So we have to design the main reinforcement for the bending moments, and we have to design the stirrups for the shear. So keep that in mind. So in the case of beams, main reinforcement takes care of the bending moment and stirrups take care of the shear force. Now using this bending moment and shear force coefficients, which are available in table 12 and 13 of IS 456-2000, we have to calculate the moment values now. So as I already told, you will be having maximum negative moment and maximum positive moment also. Maximum negative moment occurs at the supports. Which support we have to discuss, and maximum positive bending moment also occurs at the mid span. So which mid span? So that we have to consider. Now according to the IS 456-2000 that code, so if you refer to table 12, so he has given the bending moment coefficients in table 12. So I am going to use those coefficients directly here. See here, table 12, IS 456 I am using now. First let me calculate the maximum negative moment. Negative moment, where it occurs? It occurs at the support next to the end support. This is very important. Next to the end support. Here A is the end support, this side D is the end support. Next to the end support means it will be C or B. So maximum negative bending moment occurs at B or C. So I will write here. So it will occur at B and C. So since here same spans are there, loading is same, beam is symmetrical, therefore maximum bending moment equal bending moment occurs both at B and C. Now to calculate the value, so MU value, that is negative bending moment value, what we have to do is first we have to multiply. So here in this table he has given in table 12 dead load and imposed load, that is coefficient is minus 1 by 10. So you can see here support moment. At support next to the end support, the coefficient is minus 1 by 10. Here I am not taking minus here because already I have written here maximum negative bending moment. So minus represents that it is negative bending moment. So it should be divided by 10. So actually this is nothing but WL square by 10. WL square by 10. Just like your simply supported beam maximum bending moment WL square by 8. In the numerator you will be having WL square term divided by the denominator you will be having that coefficient number. Okay. So here since minus 1 by 10 is the bending moment coefficient. So 1.5 to 16 is the that is your factor load into L square is 7 meters 7 square divided by 10. And this is due to dead load. This is due to imposed load. Due to imposed load, actually it is minus 1 by 9 he has given. Not fixed imposed load. So minus 1 by 9. That means sometimes the imposed load it may not be same. It may vary. So it may be fixed or it may be it may not be fixed. Sometimes some temporary loads will be there as imposed loads. To take care of that, one more term will come into picture. That is the thing about 1.5 into 16. So please see that here. So this is for the not fixed this thing into 7 square divided by 9. So 1 by 9 he has given there. Minus 1 by 9 is the coefficient. So that is why 1 by 9 is denominator becomes 9. So these two are the values you have to add to get the maximum bending moment. So that is at the support next to the end support. This is negative bending moment. Similarly, positive bending moment. So moment at midspan is positive. Please note that moment at midspan is positive. So it is given by near middle of end span at middle of interior span. So there are two criteria there in the table. So he has taken 12 here and 10 here. That means near middle of end span. So bending moment is by maximum near middle of end span. Near middle of end span. Near middle of end span means here. So here we have maximum positive bending moment. So maximum negative bending moment occurs here. Maximum positive bending moment occurs here. The coefficients there, he has given positive coefficients 1 by 12 and 1 by 10. You can see the table. So 1 by 12 and 1 by 10. So this numerator becomes same because your dead load, due to dead load and live load fixed, this is the thing. Due to dead load and due to imposed load not fixed, this is the thing. Okay. Now, so coefficients only will differ. So this is numerator. You can see that numerators are same here. Only the denominator values will change. So this is for the positive bending moment which occurs at the middle of the end span. It occurs at the near middle of end span. This is the end span, middle of end span. So here maximum positive bending moment will occur. Here maximum negative bending moment will occur. So these are the values. These are the values of maximum negative and maximum positive bending moment. Similarly, you have to calculate maximum shear force. Because we have to provide stirrups for the maximum shear force. This maximum shear force occurs at the outer side of support next to end support. Outer side of support next to end support. You have to understand here. So outer side of support next to end support means, so this is the support. This is the support. Next to end support. Next to end support means it will come here. Outer side of support next to end support means here. Here it will come. So here you will be having a maximum shear force. Here you will be having maximum shear force. So maximum shear force occurs here. So please note that these are the critical sections in the design, where your maximum bending moment occurs, maximum shear force occurs. In bending moment you have both positive and negative. So what we have to, in a nutshell, what I can say here is maximum positive bending moment occurs at the mid of the end span, intersection of the end span. Maximum negative bending moment occurs at the support next to the end span, next to the end support. That means here it is B, or you can from this side it is C. Since both it is entire beam is symmetrical, so whatever moment at B is there, same moment you are going to get at C. Next, maximum shear force occurs at the outer edge the outer edge next to the end supports. That means here or here. So these are the things we have to consider here. Now, maximum shear force occurs at outer side of support. Next to end support is not this one, sorry, it is this one here. Okay, here it gives maximum shear force occurs here, and in this case it comes here, maximum shear force. Please understand the word use. It is not here, it is here. Whereas in the case of simply supported beam, what happens? At supports we have the maximum shear force, at mid span we have the maximum bending moment. Now here also we have to use the coefficients, shear force coefficients we have to use. So for this you have to use table 13. For bending moment coefficients you have to use table 12. For shear force coefficients you have to use table 13. So according to that, so this is the factor load 1.5 into 16. You can see in the table 13, once again there are two load combinations. One is dead load and imposed load fixed, and second one is imposed load not fixed. So this is for dead load and imposed load fixed. The coefficient here is at supports next to end support outer edge it is 0.6. So here you can read from the table. So 0.6 is the coefficient into L is the load. So this is W into L multiplied by the coefficient. Here it is WL square multiplied by the coefficient, that is 1 by 10, 1 by 9 like that. Here W into L multiplied by the coefficient plus not fixed imposed load. This is the load 1.5 into 16 into 0.6. Once again is the, you can see once again it is 0.6 on the outer side, it is 0.6 coefficient into 7. That means this is W into L into 0.6, W into L into 0.6. So if you simplify that, you will get 201.6 kN. That means now you have to design the beam for a maximum negative bending moment of 248.26 and for a maximum positive bending moment of 215.6 and maximum shear force of 201.6 kN. Now the next step is to find out the reinforcements that is required. So first we have to check whether we can provide singly reinforced section or we may have to go for doubly reinforced section. So to check for that we have to calculate one thing called XU lim. The XU lim is 0.48 times D. Here D is 250, D is 450. So 0.48 into 450, 260 mm. So MU lim we have to calculate, which is given by 0.138 FCK BD square. All these are given in IS 456. If you substitute for all these, 0.138 into FCK is 20, B is 250, D is 450 square. You are going to get the value in Newton millimeter. So actually this value is 139.7 into 10 power 6 Newton millimeter, which is the same as 139.7 kilonewton meter. Now you have to compare the value of MU and MU lim. Since in this case MU is greater than, that is maximum bending moment, it is greater than your moment of resistance. This MU lim is the moment of resistance of the section. If since this is greater than this, you have to go for doubly reinforced section. If MU is less than MU lim, you can design the section as singly reinforced section. Since in the case of doubly reinforced section, you have to provide both AST as well as ASC. So you have to provide reinforcement in both at top and bottom. So here this bottom reinforcement takes care of the tension thing, top reinforcement takes care of the compression thing. So this design is similar to doubly reinforced section which you have designed in your regular RCC. So that is will continue in the next video.